Hey, this is Madeline Sklar.
And Suze Cooper, and you're listening to All Things Audio. We are going to start with some Spaces news this week, and there's a few different things that have cropped up over this week. There seem to be these kind of miniature updates dropping. I'm sure if Hoseline was here, he'd be able to explain to us what's going on. There's not been a major update. I'm still on 9.6 of the app, but there are definitely things happening. So I had clips, and now I don't have clips. I don't have clips again today. I didn't have the magic voice changer yesterday, and that's back again today. I don't know. There's different things flicking in and out. But one of the things I did notice that I had the other day is that I can now click on the bell on an individual profile where you would normally ask Twitter to send you notifications when that person tweets. And there is a option there to be notified when someone spins up a space. So you can now select spaces and get notifications when that person goes live. So when Madeline does her 3 rooms a week, if I don't want to miss them, it's a new way to make sure that I'm reminded that these spaces are happening. So yeah, it's clicking on the little bell icon that is right near the bio in the app of the person that you're following. And that will send you a notification to remind you when their space goes live. But Madeline, this isn't something you have.
I don't have this, and I'm so bummed. So let me tell you guys a very quick story. In the early days of being a beta tester, Twitter had asked me to give them a laundry list of things, my wants, like what do I want out of spaces? What you're showing in your screenshot, that's one of the things I asked for. I said, when you go to the bell for notifications on individual Twitter accounts, you get choice. It's defaulted to none, or you can say all tweets or say only tweets with live video. Now, we know live video was not a big success with Twitter. So I said to them, why don't you change that and make it spaces? That would be amazing, because there are plenty of people where I don't want to get notifications every time they tweet, but I want to get notified every time they are doing a spaces room. And so I asked for this at least a year, probably more than a year ago. So I am so thrilled that you have this, Suze. I don't have it yet. I have the most current version of the iOS Twitter app. So I don't know if this is just being tested and you're part of the test group. I haven't heard about a rollout, so I'm thinking this is just a test.
No, I totally found out about this by accident. I wanted some notifications on a particular account. And so I was on there to get that notification each time that person tweeted, and I realised that there was a spaces option for it, and I haven't heard about it or seen anything about it. So yeah, it's maybe a feature that they're just testing out with a small group, as you say.
They do that a lot. They'll do these random tests. It's very random as to who's selected, and many times you don't even know they're doing this until someone sees it in the wild, takes a screenshot, and lets everyone know. And really, when I saw your tweet yesterday, that was the first time I even had seen a screenshot of this. So I'm thinking it's a test, but at least with this feature you're testing, Suze, at least people that are hosting multiple rooms, it'll be very easy to just click on the bell, get that, and then you won't miss their rooms. Now, you uncovered an interesting tweet from Alessandro Paluzzi, who like Jane Wong, does all that reverse engineering. I love seeing all the things they share, because we're seeing things before they're rolled out. And this was quite interesting, talking about some updates to managing your Twitter Spaces and hosting history. You want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't give very much away. And I guess I was interested to know whether or not this is a feature that someone like yourself, Madeline, who hosts several spaces a week, might find useful. So all we're told here is that Twitter is working on the ability to manage your Twitter space hosting history. So I assume that means that you'll be able to see a list of the spaces that you've hosted. I would like to know whether or not there's going to be any analytics attached to that on like a one screen, one shot. That might be one step too far. But I mean, would that be useful to you, Madeline, to have this kind of hosting history that you can go back to? I guess it depends what else it gives you beyond that. I mean, when you've hosted a space.
Yeah, the thing is, we don't know exactly. It just says hosting history, manager hosting history. Okay, so what exactly we don't know yet what that means. But above that, where it says let followers see which spaces you're listening to, this is something a lot of people don't realize that you can adjust right now. Is defaulted to be turned on. And if if you don't like, because, like for all of our listeners that are here right now with us, okay, you're in this room live and you're listening here. And so that means that you're going to be visible. That's just how it is. You can't prevent that. But do you want to let people know that you're currently, like when you're at the top, the space bar, I like when it was Fleet's bar, but space bar, just kind of a funny name. But you know how like it'll show, if somebody is in there, show their picture, if someone you follow is in there. And so if you don't like that, if that's like kind of like a privacy issue for you, you can actually turn that off by on mobile going to settings and privacy, and then going to privacy and safety. And once you're in there, you'll see a section called spaces. And that's where I believe this hosting history will end up residing, because when you're on this page here, it shows the part that's right above about the wording is a little different. It says, allow followers to see which spaces you're listening to. And it's defaulted on. If I don't want people to know, I can tap it and turn it off. So, but I imagine that's where we'll see the hosting history once that becomes available.
Now, this next tweet is really something that I saw happening in a space. Full disclosure, I help out Paul Armstrong with the Mouthwash Show, and he started up his recent series last week. And in the nest, Madeline, he put this graphic, please share the space, and then an arrow towards the blue circle with the plus sign in a graphic. He didn't have to say anything. He literally put that up during the space. And a few people shared the space. So I thought, what a great idea. I briefly spoke about this at the very end of last week's live All Things Audio, about how if you're in a space and you're loving what you're hearing, then you should tweet the space so more people can join the space. And then Paul put this together, and I just thought that brought it together so nicely. And it also means that as the host, you're not constantly having to remind people that they can do that. So yeah, I really liked this graphic, and just the idea that you can kind of flick that up into the nest when you're hosting and not have to kind of keep going back and reminding people.
It's an excellent idea. I really love this. When we put things in the nest, they really stand out, and having a graphic like that pretty much just says it all. A lot of times hosts are not comfortable telling the room, hey, if you don't mind, please hit the little plus on your phone there and share this room, and let's, make sure other people know about it. But what an interesting way to remind people just through a graphic. And so super smart what Paul's doing. So great catch there. Thank you for sharing that. Now there's some Clubhouse news. So it's a couple of different interesting things. I love this tweet that you shared about this new dynamic head tracking for spatial audio. It's intriguing. Fill us in on what this is all about.
Yeah, this totally blew my mind. And I totally have to give all credit to Morgan for drawing my attention to this room that happened on Clubhouse. I didn't listen to it live. I listened to the replay. Thank goodness for replays. It is quite possibly the best hour I have spent in my headphones this week. And considering I spend a lot of hours in my headphones, that is saying something. It was brilliant, honestly. Anyone who is even vaguely interested in the sound of social audio should go ahead and listen to this room over on Clubhouse. This was Justin Uberti, who is one of the audio tech team over on Clubhouse, talking about the different possibilities with audio on these platforms. And I've clipped a little section of it just there where he'd been talking about how he created the spatial audio effect. So over on Clubhouse, he has created this effect where if you're listening, you can hear people coming in. Each speaker comes in at a different point in the stereo field, effectively. So the idea is that it sounds like a more natural conversation. Now, when they first flicked the switch on this, there were many weeks on All Things Audio where I was like, I just can't hear it. This isn't a thing. It's not real. And Morgan was like, no, it's really real. I can hear it. You just got to keep listening. And eventually I got the update and I could hear it. And it is quite obvious. You can hear people coming in from the left. Someone else will then talk from the right. It's an intriguing experience, but something that I would never have considered that they might have introduced to social audio. Now, Justin is the guy who literally engineered that from the ground up. He talks about how he did it during this hour-long conversation that he has in this room. And, he says he put his head down. He came up with the idea. He kind of showed it to Paul Davison, and they went, yeah, let's ship this thing. And he was like, okay. And in a fortnight, he literally did it by himself and made it work and happen. I mean, just incredible and mind-blowing. So to hear him talk about that, to hear him talk about they've got a small audio team over there of, I think, 4 people that are bringing in all of these different aspects to audio over there. Obviously, they've got the music mode over there as well, which is also I'm completely intrigued by, particularly as I've had some issues with music actually over here on Spaces, but maybe we'll leave that one for next week. But yeah, just a really, really interesting chat. And he was talking about how the next move may well be that as you move your head with your headphones on, the sound will dynamically track where your head is and therefore give you a more realistic experience. He said, it could be quite disorientating, and I agree, it could be. But I guess, this is the way that audio is going to be used in VR, in virtual reality, in the metaverse, all those kind of things. So we should really expect some really different audio experiences coming through. And, there's no doubt about it. Clubhouse and Justin are totally on it over there and are doing great things. So, yeah, if you're even vaguely interested in how the sound of this stuff is happening, this is definitely one to go back and catch up on.
Super interesting stuff. And I'm really digging spatial audio through my AirPods Pro. Where my older AirPods don't seem to do it just normally. I'm sure they're developed this with Clubhouse for any kind of headphones, right? So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But AirPods Pro, isn't it right that has the spatial audio built in? Because it's such a different experience.
They brought it onto Apple Music, and so, you can listen to some albums and artists and you can hear sort of a wider stereo field. So therefore, I think their products are therefore built to really enhance it and so that you can really experience it. But yeah, it's just, I would never have imagined that social audio would be out there doing these things, really. You kind of expect the music platforms to put out as best they can with this new tech and all the different new ways there are of mixing, Dolby Atmos, all of those kind of things. But, Clubhouse is really leading the way with this and Justin's really leading the way. And this conversation is just super, super interesting.
Well, it makes you feel like you're sitting in person with them and you're hearing it very 3D from every angle versus what we normally hear with social audio that feels very 2D. So super interesting that they're doing that. Love that Clubhouse is going in that direction. Can't wait to see all this keep unfolding because I find it super interesting. Spatial audio, I just really didn't pay much attention to until I've had these AirPods Pro since they came out, and I don't like how they fit. Just don't like them. So I didn't use them I just used my old AirPods. And then I was more recently reading really interesting stuff about the quality of the AirPods Pro. And I thought, let me give it another chance. And many times what I like to do is watch like movies with those on. And it is crazy. You hear stuff in every direction and it is so cool. Sometimes I feel like somebody is breaking into I'm looking around going, is someone in my house? Like it feels so real. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, spatial audio. I'm really starting to dig all that. Other Clubhouse news, wildcard games. What's going on with the more I read about this, the more interesting it really sounds.
It really is. And a few weeks ago, we spoke about this. We spoke about how I think it was one of the reverse engineer tweeters that we follow had uncovered the fact that Clubhouse had a game tab in there. And so were they going to be introducing games? And the answer is very much yes. And this week we have seen the introduction of the Wildcards game over on Clubhouse. Super interesting. You go into a room and Clubhouse has basically got a list of questions that can be asked during the game. And these questions appear in little cards up where our nest is, that it appears as the pinned tweet. And then you go round and you get everybody to answer the question. So there are all kinds of different things like pitch your best idea for a movie series in 60 seconds or, what's the best thing you've done this weekend, to what type of dog matches your personality. There's a whole list of different questions. And I guess it's a way to get people talking. And it seems to be really taking off. People seem to be really, really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. To bring people together and just ask questions. And this is such a neat idea when you just want to go and have some fun, maybe unwind after a hard day of work and just have these questions pop up and you ask the room and get all these different answers. I think it just sounds like a fun time. I know very early on with Twitter Spaces, there were a lot of these rooms where they would play games, like a lot of trivia games. I don't see them as often. I'm sure they're still around. I just don't. They used to always be in my feed. So it sounds like this is very much like that, like coming up with a fun type of trivia game to bring people together in conversation.
And, people are jumping in and meeting each other for the first time. And, that is at the very base level what this was all about, starting up new conversations, meeting new people, really kind of engaging with one another. And I just think it's a nice way of doing it. Often knowing what you're going to talk about is half the problem, isn't it? So if you've got this card and everyone's going to go around and answer the same thing, I guess it's, it's social audio icebreakers. And it looks like it's doing really well.
Yeah, I think it was really smart on Clubhouse part because they got to keep coming up with ways to bring people together, right? The one thing Twitter Spaces, and I think with LinkedIn audio and now with the new Spotify we'll be talking about shortly, is when it's all part of the big app, you're more likely to already be in there doing things and not necessarily leaving. But Clubhouse, like you have to make the effort to go to Clubhouse. And what if you're tired of going to Clubhouse because all you feel like it is a bunch of TED Talks, with big name speakers and you don't get a chance to talk and you're more like a listener. This is a neat idea to, I think, get more people using it for something other than, hey, let's talk business or let's just have these very, very specific conversations. Now it's like, hey, let's come together and have some fun.
Yeah, I think fun is the key. And I think there's still a lot of people who won't have taken the mic, won't have requested the mic and, might want to step out there and give it a go out of their comfort zone. And as I say, this takes, 50% at least of the worry out of it, of what you're going to say. This asks you the question. And if you've got an answer that you want to share, then join in the game. I think it's a great one for them to start. I wonder what else they will roll out. I did see, as you say, in the early days, I think some people were sort of playing Pictionary by using like a joint Miro board, so like posting the link as the pinned link over there, and then everybody going over to the Miro board, and then people trying to guess in 60 seconds what was being drawn, that kind of thing. So whether or not they'll come up with a different version of that, who knows? But this is definitely a great start. I think it's good to start with something really simple, see if it's going to catch people's imagination, and at the moment I can see that it is.
Yeah, that's super cool. Now, last week we talked all about LinkedIn audio events, super cool and interesting, but you actually went to their town hall this past weekend. I can't wait to hear all the things you heard about.
Yeah, that's right. I finally managed to catch a town hall. I've been trying to attend a town hall on a Sunday for weeks and weeks and weeks, but it's 7:00, which just isn't a good time in my house, and I haven't been able to do it. But this last Sunday, I did jump in. And it was really interesting to hear what people were saying over there. It's hosted by a guy called Robert Hanna. And there's some serious disillusionment going on over there is what I really caught wind of. I mean, as I say, this is I think they've been doing this pretty much since the beta began. So they've been doing it every single week. Robert and Judy Fox, who was actually with us last week and was talking about the discoverability calendar for LinkedIn. They co-host it together. They've been doing it every single week. But the real glaring point that was being made as I joined the room was that there's no one attending this town hall and no one who has attended it up until now from LinkedIn. They are really feeling a lack of LinkedIn presence over there. Now, when Spaces started up 12 months ago, we had people from the product team in and out of different spaces. Madeline, you and I, we'd see Danny in here sometimes.
Oh, yeah, all the time. We would see the Twitter Spaces team. I would see them pop into just about every room that I was in, whether I was hosting, co-hosting, or just a listener, always having that presence, which I think was so important in the beginning. Very surprising to hear that you're just not getting anyone attending from LinkedIn for these type of town halls.
Yeah, and I know, I think it was host Celine said last week that Robert was, leading these town halls. But I guess because it's called the weekly town hall, I did sort of expect that there would just be someone from LinkedIn there. But no, the conversation between everybody on there, and there were probably about 10 people that had the mic. There was a good flow of conversation there, all beta hosts pretty much. And a real kind of disillusionment and kind of fears that LinkedIn aren't going to continue this beyond the beta because they're not feeling like there's any platform support there. That no one knows where to go. Everyone's basically talking to this Robert guy on a Sunday, and then the Robert guy goes with his little list of things that people have asked for and want and speaks to someone at LinkedIn and then reports back. So they've been doing a survey of the beta hosts to see how it's all been going, and it all seems to have been fed through this one man. So it just seems a little bit removed and not what we've certainly experienced here on Twitter. And I feel like over on Clubhouse there was certainly much more presence over there, despite how quickly it blew up. Like, people knew the names of the people who were behind creating all of this, and kind of it just felt a little bit like people were a bit frustrated with it, really. And there's also this issue with such a small number of beta hosts, and it's only beta hosts that have been given the functionality at the moment that can spin up a live audio space, audio event over there. And there are beta hosts who've been given this function who aren't using it. And they were sort of saying as they were going along, there's probably actually quite a few that aren't using it and aren't interested in it. And yet there are other people who would really love to be making audio content on the platform, but they can't get the feature and they don't know where to go to ask for the feature. And, there's no hashtag Spaces research or anything like that. So in one case, a lady had been co-hosting with someone who had the access and was hosting the space every single day. And she'd been doing this for a couple of months. And the guy she's been doing it with doesn't want to do it anymore. So he's not hosting anymore, which means she has to stop because she doesn't have the function on her profile to do it. And she said, we were having such a great time and it was going really well, but his circumstances had changed. He can't carry on. And I just, that's a lot of effort. We know, we're doing it weekly. They were doing it daily and they were getting lots of people in there to listen. So it's, it needs some love. I think it needs some love.
It sure does. Yeah, it sounds like the LinkedIn management team is not supporting this as much as they could be. I mean, they should definitely have people hosting that want to host. If you've got a group of people you've given access to and they're not doing it, then give it to the ones that do and let them shine. And one of the things I love about Clubhouse is they're so good about these weekly town halls. Like, they're there sharing the latest and listening to the community. And Twitter Spaces, same thing. They try to do theirs weekly. They're not always weekly, but you can always go to the Twitter Spaces community and Q&A sessions and hear the latest from them. And then they turn around and say, hey, grab the mic. We want to hear from you. What can we do to make this better? LinkedIn needs to get on board with that, like, if they're going to make it, because hearing what you attended just does not sound like is being managed the way it should be if they plan to make this a great success. But here's what's interesting. So Matt Navarra tweeted this. I'm going to share it here, that LinkedIn is rolling out captions for the audio events for the beta. So they're making the effort to put in features. So you would think that means they're planning to, get this out of beta and go further with it. But why aren't they managing it better?
I don't know, but I really, I don't think they are going to drop it. They've introduced LinkedIn podcasts. Audio is having this major boom at the moment. I really can't see that they're going to drop it. They might only make it available to the creators they want to make it available to. Some platforms are doing that. We're about to speak about another one in a moment, so that they're very much hand-picked. I guess these platforms, they weren't set up for audio, particularly, good quality live stream audio. I guess there's a lot of work that's needed to be done in the back end to make sure that the actual platform doesn't fall over because the people that aren't using the audio don't want their experience interrupted. So, I think this is why there is such a small group. As you mentioned, Madeline, with our very first story on Twitter, a small group of people get given a feature and they test it out and then they iterate on it, or they roll it out, or they take it back, depending how that works. And I do see that is what LinkedIn is doing. They don't want the whole thing to go boom. But at the same time, I think they need to be supporting those creators, even to the point that this guy who's been hosting this weekly town hall is saying, well, actually, I'm going to start doing this every fortnight now because it's a Sunday evening and I do it off my own back. And, and actually, if you've got kind of the one guy who was the focal point, even sort of saying, I'm going to need to step back from this because I don't know where this is going, it starts to just feel a little bit furry. But, I really hope all the best for LinkedIn audio events, because I really see them as a great thing. And as I say, they seem to be investing in audio in other places, so I can't see that they're going to drop it completely. But yeah, definitely keeping a close eye on that one. But in another breath, the other one we've been keeping a close eye on, Madeline, here it comes.
We got a lot of things to show everybody, lots of tweets.
We have. So Spotify Green Room finally became Spotify Live this week. Not quite in the way that I was expecting, I have to say. They did say a few weeks ago that they were going to integrate into the main app shortly, and there would be a rebrand. This is most certainly a name change and a rebrand, but it is still a standalone app. So anyone who had Green Room previously will see in the latest update that it is now called Spotify Live. It is connected to the main Spotify app. If you're listening to something that has something that's live connected to it, it's not completely intuitive. It's not very obvious, but I guess this is their first step into linking the two together. And it certainly sparks a whole heap of conversation here on Twitter. I'm hoping Morgan might request the mic in a bit to chat with us about it. We've certainly had some interesting conversations around where they might be going with it. As I say, at the moment, in the main Spotify app, it's a listen-only experience. Effectively, if you're listening to a podcast, there's a card that appears underneath it, and that gives you the option to join in on Spotify Live. And if you click on that, I'm guessing it then takes you to the Spotify Live app, which was Green Room, and that is where you can actually participate. You can have your live chat, request the mic. You can do the back channel chat, and also give gems, because they've kept the gems, Madeline. I mean, I don't know. I don't get the gems. It's definitely not for my demographic. I'm definitely not the right demographic. I don't get the gems. But yes, so it seems it is going to be select original programming, and I quote. So it is most certainly exclusive all the way, which, as myself and Morgan were chatting about earlier, kind of makes sense as to why they haven't really supported grassroots creators. It's not going to be a platform for you and I to create on, which I think is kind of disappointing. They do certainly want to keep control of who it is that's going to be having these live conversations. Yeah, I mean, as I say, it felt like an odd move, but thinking about it, it's a first step move, and I'm fairly sure it will all come together in the fullness of time. And this is just kind of a toe in the water. As Morgan said in one of our exchanges, though, the only thing that's really refreshed is the name. And I agree with that, I think, at this point.
So if I understand this right, if you're in the Spotify app, you can be a listener, but you can't speak. If you want to speak, you then have to open up the separate app.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting how they're doing it like that. Kind of like how with Spaces, how we have the mobile app to speak, but we can listen on desktop. But we're still inside of Twitter regardless. So interesting to see if this is going to work in this manner. I don't know. I don't know about this. Because you got to make sure you have, what if you're listening to a room and you're really digging it, but you don't have the app downloaded? Now you got to go download it. What if you're having issues downloading? Now you can't be part of this live conversation.
Yeah, and I'm still kind of wondering how many people are really aware of it. I mean, Green Room has been Green Room for a while. It hasn't been Spotify anything. It's just been Green Room. You know, we know about it because we're interested in social audio and we've been following it all this time. But it might be pretty random to people in the Spotify app, you know, to see this and as you say, then press the button and then have to go and download something. And it's not a great user experience initially. But yeah, let's see how they go. I mean, we've been watching them all the way and have been kind of confused about the whole strategy of it. And to be honest, this hasn't really made it much clearer for me, particularly. But yeah, as I say, I'm hoping that Morgan will come up and chat with us about it in a bit.
And you were conversing with Don Coven, who I see is here live with us. And so I just put his tweet up as well. Yeah, it's all very super interesting for sure. But yeah, Spotify Live. So it's officially Spotify Live.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, Don's comments were really great because, you know, I was sort of saying maybe Spotify have hung around a bit too long, and anyone who's interested in social audio already knows where they're going to spend their time. Time is at a premium right now, and there are so many different platforms, as we've spoken about, over the weeks, to lend your ear to. Are people going to want to listen now on Spotify, or are we already all happy where we are? And Don was kind of saying, he wants genuine conversations. He loves listening to these rooms and spaces that have been built organically and have their own character. And he doesn't want to listen to paid content. And essentially, that's what it feels like Spotify is really going after.
Right. And then this last tweet from Morgan, this is really interesting that they're selecting this original programming inside the app. But if you're not part of this, select group, then you have to start your room directly from this separate app.
Yeah, that's right. This is a great thread from Morgan. I'd urge everyone to click on this. This was tweeted out earlier today. And, what he says within that is around the fact that by having control of who that original programming is being created by, Spotify also has control over which audience they're attracting to the platform. And I think, that is kind of really key to why they're doing it the way that they're doing it. So yeah, definitely go and check out Morgan's thread. Some really interesting insights as ever.
Yeah, great information for sure. So much new stuff going on. It's crazy how much is happening over with all of these different apps right now.
It totally is. I'm going to give you a little rundown, seeing as this is our 1-year anniversary, about what we were talking about this time last year. We were talking about monetization being introduced on Clubhouse and the tip jar being added to Spaces. Spotify had acquired Locker Room. So, that's how far we've come with that one. LinkedIn had confirmed it was thinking about its own Clubhouse rival. Facebook said it was going to be going after Clubhouse with live audio rooms. Yeah, not sure what happened there. Reddit launched Reddit Talk. So, we have come an awfully long way in 12 months with all of these different platforms. And I'm sure in the next 12 months, we'll be looking back and saying exactly the same. It seems to have moved extremely fast for some of them and really quite slowly for others. And just super interesting times.
Very much, very much. Two things I want to direct everybody to in the Nest. So I have the Twitter moment set up with all the tweets we've talked about today. Everything that was in the Nest is in this one tweet. So if you want to hold on to that tweet, that has everything. And then the most recent one in the Nest, Suze, real quick, you came up with your own Twitter moment you just put together today of the replays, the last 30 days of replays of our Twitter Spaces rooms. This is really interesting what you're doing here.
Yes. So, again, this is a bit of a hat tip towards Morgan because he DM'd me Bloomberg's Twitter moment earlier today where they had basically put a whole list of their replays into a Twitter moment. And I suddenly went, oh my goodness, that is going to help me so much because I've been trying to collect up our analytics before the 30 days is up to see how many people have been listening to our replays and listening in live. And so what I can do now is create a Twitter moment. And I will then have that to go back and look at before the replays disappear because they're only on the platform for 30 days. I can check in those analytics without having to put in the date on the analytics on desktop or scrolling back through my timeline, which has been a bit of a chore to do. And not only does that make it easy for me to track the analytics, but if anyone wants to listen to the live version and the replays, then it will be within this Twitter moment. So what I'm going to do is update it, knock off the earlier one and add in the new one each week. And it'll be a great way to keep track of things for now while Twitter don't give you the analytics in a very obvious place.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I've thought about doing something like this, a Twitter moment but then you got to keep updating it every week because 30 days and then the recording is no longer available. But, seeing how you put this together is now giving me ideas of I need to just do this for my other rooms as well. So super smart. Thanks for tweeting that so I could share this in the Nest for everybody to see. Hey, Morgan, thank you for joining us. Always great having you here.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's talk Spotify, Morgan.
Yeah, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, what do you think? Why double down and only have exclusive creators on there?
So I think there are broadly two things going on. One thing, which was only really twigged for me this week when I was going through all of this is that if Spotify let normal users have the reach of the Spotify main app, so if they linked what is now Spotify Live with the main Spotify that everybody knows, and you or I, as a regular person, would have started a live room and it would be available over there, they would have a really major moderation problem. And as we know from Spaces, Spaces has a team that has huge experience in moderating text content, and they've struggled and I think made quite good progress with dealing with moderation in live audio. But it's a really big problem. And Spotify has absolutely no experience, pretty much, of moderating live audio. So I think we've seen this with Facebook and with Reddit too, being very, very cautious and trying to learn from some of the bad stuff that happened on Clubhouse earlier on, particularly when they were thinking about launching this. So I think that's number one, is to be really careful that the things that are given the reach are things that they know are going to be pretty good quality or people they trust. The other one is going to be the business reason. So these are people who are typically Spotify exclusives or partnerships. It's top-down programming. So these are things that Spotify are invested in the main app in getting an audience anyway. And Spotify Live is just another way to promote them and give them something that's sort of slightly distinctive. It's a value add for a podcaster to have live show and to have some kind of closeness with the community in that way. So that there is that angle. And if you look at the kinds of programming they've gone on for, it seems very much like, let's just say, kind of Gen Z or 20s orientated. So trying to bring in this younger audience who will treat Spotify as a destination platform for their podcast listening. So I think those are the two main things, business and moderation.
Yeah, great points and really well explained, Morgan. Thank you.
Hey, George, how's it going?
Hi, I wanted to just quickly report to you that I did test out the notifications of Spaces thing, and I have it, but I'm apoplectic. I can barely talk. It makes me choose. So if I click on Madeline and I click on the bell, I have to choose between her tweets and her Spaces. I'm going to stop there because I'm going to start cursing. Because I can't believe that they can do something like that. That has just got to be engineers who know nothing about human beings.
Well, here's the thing. Before the change, I don't have it yet. So my only options is defaulted to none. And for those that came late, one of the things we talked about is, on mobile, there's the bell on anybody's profile. There's the bell, and you can get notifications from just that one person, and it's defaulted for none. Now, if you don't have this new update, that I really believe is just a test, your choices are all tweets or only tweets with live video. That's it. So, George, my thinking is they're expanding it, but they didn't think, what if I want all tweets and Spaces? Actually, the only tweets with live video, there's one person, Kara Swisher, who writes for New York Times and other publications. She's a big time podcaster. She does a lot of Twitter lives, and I love her live streams on Twitter. And so she is probably the only profile I have that turned on for. I just only tweets with live video. So that way, when she is live streaming video on Twitter, I get a notification on my phone because I don't want to miss it. They're always really good. Even though it's recorded and I can watch it. I like the interaction and being there live and responding to stuff that she says. But I think now that they're expanding it, adding Spaces, they didn't really think it through. What if you want both? Yeah, but I hear you. Thank you for noticing that and pointing it out, because I don't have the feature yet. And I was curious, because the way I have it on my phone, they're radio buttons. So it's just one or the other. Your three choices, you only get to have one. So, Michael, you want to tell us about Clubhouse games?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to say that I'm really fascinated by the idea of social audio and games and what Clubhouse has begun. I mean, this is just a simple, basically, billboard that goes at the top of the space and then everybody answers the question. but I think there's a lot of potential for integrating like actual games into the app, or being able to use social audio as a way to connect with each other while playing games together online. And I actually had the chance to do some of this on New Year's Eve when I was hosting a space or a room on Clubhouse. And a friend of mine on Clubhouse got us onto boardgamearena.com, and we played some games on there while we were talking on Clubhouse together. And I'm not trying to pitch the service or anything, but that's just the service that we used. But what was cool is that, like there were people in the audience who could watch the pinned link at the top of the room, and they could basically observe us playing while we were on our other devices playing together. So I guess the ability for social audio and games to sort of make a really nice light load balance of fun is really exciting to me. So I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and it'll be interesting to see. Like, is this something that people want, or is it going to turn into a big thing? I think it will, because it is such a fun way to come together, whether you do this with strangers or you just invite your friends. Because when I read the article about it, it says you could just start a room with just your friends and play the game.
Andrew's next, I believe. Andrew reminded me while I was talking about the awesome Spaces dashboard and the fact that all the things I was saying about the analytics are right there. I've got them on my screen right now, Madeline. It's so exciting. So I'm definitely going to be going back into Spaces dashboard and having another look at that. Hello, Andrew. Welcome to the space.
Hey, ladies. Happy birthday. Congratulations. And I just wanted to let Madeline know as well, which I'm not sure she's aware, and she may well be. But now also in the dashboard, you can go into any space and look at what's been shared in the nest before you even visit the space, which means that we're actually saving all of the nested content now in essentially the dashboard.
Wow.
It's very cool. I'm looking at it right now. It's like a one-pager. And today we have shared so much stuff. You just keep scrolling. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So each of those tweets that you've put up into the nest for us, Madeline, is now on our dashboard page in Spaces dashboard, along with the people who have had the mic, a graph showing us who joined when, so how many listeners we've had throughout the time that we've been live, and a counter as well. Does the counter take in replays afterwards, Andrew?
Not yet, but once it becomes into the API, because we very much work along the API, we could do those sort of things, but we want to stick to exactly when Twitter released them. So that will be coming along with the RSVPs. So you'll also be able to go into the dashboard and see who's coming to your future spaces. But what's really nice is what you were saying, Suze, is we automatically identify when the 30 days is up. So we remove the play button for anything that's not available. So you just do what you do, make great programming, and we'll just make it easier for people to find it and for you to share it, and almost have a one-stop shop where people can come to you, see all of the great stuff you've done in the past, and sign up for the future ones.
Wonderful. I mean, it's been great to see how Spaces dashboard has changed and grown over the last 12 months as well, and to have met you during doing all of these spaces. And, you've added different features and it really has grown. And you get a mention. I've got a little kind of audio look back that I'm going to play out as we close the space out. And you get a mention for the amazing 24-hour space that you and host Celine hosted for the 1 year of Spaces, which was pretty epic. So, yes, thank you so much for being a supporter, and I'll definitely be diving back into Dashboard. And, yeah, perhaps you can jump on sometime soon and talk us through all the new bits that are coming online.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate everyone here today celebrating a whole year of all things audio with me and Suze. It's just been an awesome journey with all of you joining with us.
It certainly have. And to mark that, I'm now going to play us a 3-minute little recap of some of the highlights of what's happened in all things audio over the last 12 months. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us live in the space today, and for everyone that's listening on the podcast too. Our podcast will be out on Friday. Please search All Things Audio wherever you listen to podcasts, and consider giving us a rating and review, which would really help us because it means that more people get to know about the podcast. And the replay will be live, obviously, straight after this as well. So thank you to everybody. We love our community. We love being here every single single week, and it has been amazing doing this for 12 whole months. Here's to the next 12, Madeline.
Yes, for sure. Thank you all. We'll see you next week. Last week we had so many things we were going to talk about, and then we totally ran out of time and didn't get, it's interesting because you never really know the direction this will go.
My main lookout around the year anniversary of Twitter Spaces was Spaces Day. So this was spun up by host Celine, who lots of people will know, along with Andrew Lyons, who is the guy behind the Spaces dashboard, which we've spoken about quite a lot here in All Things Audio.
Maybe the next step is when you click on the room after it's ended, you see who spoke, and it would make sense that that's where you would click a replay button.
Yeah, do you know what? I think they're probably going to be more excited to try and keep people on Twitter, aren't they? They don't want people to go off the platform.
We all know Spotify to be about music and podcasts. So even though Locker Room was geared around sports, really when all this happened last year, my thought was, okay, so they're going to bring this built-in audience they already have, but being this big giant for music and podcasts, that they would certainly incorporate that in and have a plan.
Morgan, what do you think? I mean, I know you've been over on Clubhouse listening into the music mode, different people using it in different ways. Do we need it on social audio?
Hello, both. Well, I think it adds something very nice.
LinkedIn is very established as a business corporate kind of conversation going on over there in posts and different things. So I guess it's just whether or not people who are on LinkedIn are willing to join the conversation for real.
I think it depends, are you someone who spends a lot of time in LinkedIn? Then I think it would be a logical thing. Okay, I'm here a lot, just like we're in Twitter all the time. So it makes sense for us to use Spaces.
The purple dot kind of was what we used to show that we were the beta Twitter Spaces crowd, I suppose. And so when I shortened my name, I took my dot off as well. But it's very strange. It's a very strange thing. Some people have still got it, some people haven't because it's rolled out. So yeah, that was a big moment for me.
I love that more people now have the ability to record their rooms, and I'm seeing more and more people use that feature. So now I've been able to go back and listen to some great rooms that I just couldn't be at live.
Suze,
yes.
I have some breaking news, but we could save it for the next episode.
Well, it won't be breaking news then.
No, we want it now. It's breaking.
You can't say
make us
that.
beg for it.
Exactly.
Yeah, we
can't say that and make us wait a week.
Go on, you.
Hey, I don't know your show. I don't know
Love
what's
it.
going on here.